Welcome, panel. I'll just briefly introduce the panel before I give an introduction to the theme. And rather than go through their bios, which are extensive, I thought I'd share a little insight into their private lives. So we have Kathy Cochran from Boston Consultancy Group, a senior advisor there. And Kathy has a passion for travel, and she actually combines that with a passion for red wine. So France is the #1 destination that Kathy really loves. And then we have Lisa Courtard, Executive Director at Merck.
Try not to fall off the stool.
We have promised we will pick you up if you do. And Lisa has a couple of passions. She's got a real passion for education. She also has a passion for community service, and I think she combines those two very well. And her sons maybe don't always agree that it's a great way to spend their lives, but she's really passionate about helping society and encouraging her kids to do the same. Now, Alex, he's got the best title ever, President Americas. I mean, not President USA, but President Americas, and that's really great. President for Brain Juicer. And Alex used to have lots of passions, but he's got a 2-year-old daughter, so passions are out the window, and his life is revolving around sleepless nights, and I can empathize with that. And finally, Mr. Chadwick, Simon Cambiar. Simon, if you didn't know, and I didn't know there were any Alps in South Africa, but that's where Simon was born. He also has a passion for restoring vintage cars. So if you've ever got one of those, you might want to do that. And last but not least, he's a writer of children's fiction. So if you ever want somebody to tell a good story to your clients, Simon's the guy for that.
But in very, very simple language.
That's all they understand, apparently. The higher you get, the simpler it should be. Do I have a clicker? Oh, wonderful. Okay, so you've got your phones on. Fantastic. So today we're going to talk about the opportunity the industry has and the opportunity around the return on investment. Now, for me, the opportunity is there because of the drive to customer centricity, if we look at the big picture. And that means that the interest in what we offer in terms of insight and data has never been bigger. We've never had such a great opportunity, which means that client side obviously have this massive opportunity to grow budgets, which means that agencies have a massive opportunity to also grow revenues. Unfortunately, the reality isn't always like that today, but I still see it as an opportunity, and I believe if we can crack this return on investment question, we will be so much closer to reaching the top of that mountain. But there's massive competition, and I think we must realize also internally, our client-side research teams, insights teams are facing competition for who owns the customer data, who owns the client customer insight space. And those on the agency side obviously also face great competition for this same space. So I think obviously working together in partnership, agencies and clients, we are much better faced to beat that competition. And we really have to act like wolves, and we have to fight for our place at the table. The question to you is that, are we making a big enough imprint, a big enough footprint on the business? Is our impact that we're having on the business today good enough in terms of what we can offer? And I think, again, that we have a much greater opportunity than we're actually delivering currently. But if we can crack this ROI question, I believe that we will be in a much better place. And what that means to me is if my theory is right, the customer or the C-suite is much more interested in customer insight than they used to be. That means that they're going to be much more interested in the return on investment we are delivering than they used to be. And that's a question we need to be prepared for, and not a question we need to reactively try and find a solution for when the CFO says, what did you do for us last year? What was your value to the business? We need to have that answer ready. So in practice, we need to earn our seat at the table. So the question to you is, how many of you actually know how much return on investment you delivered to your clients, if you're on the agency side last year, and if you're on the client side, to internal clients. I'm a great believer in the 20/80 rule. So the question is, do you know which 20% of your budget delivered 80% of your return? Do you know what triggered that investment, that result? Do you know what are the barriers to raising that investment? Because if you can answer those questions, you're going to be in a much better place to demand an increase in budget rather than have to defend why your budget shouldn't be cut, which is probably the reality many research client-side people are facing if they cannot defend and define their return on investment. So we get a bit interactive here. So now you get the chance to stand up and be a hero. If you believe that the research sector, the insights industry, has a possibility to deliver a strong ROI, you get to stand up at this point. If you don't, you can keep sitting down. Okay, do we have any business value is the question. If you're still sitting down and don't think you offer business value, you're in the wrong room. That's the way. Good. Now, you're standing up because you also stay standing because you're much better at using your phones when you're standing. Okay? And we're going to make it easy for you to deliver ROI tomorrow. Okay? You can Google with your phones, GRBN 100-day. Now, if Google, don't use Bing. Sorry, I don't know if Microsoft's in the room, but this works with Google best. So if you do that, that will take you to a website called the GRBN 100-day challenge website, which will give you the opportunity to actually stand up, to put your name on a list of people that have committed to make a difference towards the research industry. There are 7 challenges on that website. You don't have to worry about them all. The 2 you're interested in are value to clients and ROI impact. So if you find either of those, click on it, enter your name, email address, and we'll start a conversation. I'll get back to you, and we will work together to do something for the good of the industry over the next 100 days. Okay? So hopefully some of you are going to do that. I tried this in a room where I've let people go out and do it when they've left, and nobody does it. So you're actually being forced a little bit of social pressure here to take part and be part of the solution. So the 2 things we're going to talk about today, while you're doing that, is the impact and the ROI. Yes, you can sit down now, thanks. These are 2 of the big issues. One is, can we demonstrate the ROI we're delivering to clients? And the other one is, can we actually raise the amount of value that we give to clients? And those are the 2 big issues that we're going to talk about today. And they're very big, hairy issues. But fortunately, on the panel, we've got some experts who know something about this subject. And now we're going to talk a little bit about what you can do in practice. But to frame that panel discussion, I'm still going to ask Simon and Alex to share some thoughts on the research they've done into this question about what decision makers in business consider the current state of affairs on the insights. Yeah, I think he's going to. Oh, okay, let's switch around.
Okay, so let me just go back as well. So why the emphasis on ROI? I think there's been a conversation about ROI probably for the last decade or so, and very often researchers say, but you can't demonstrate ROI, you can't measure ROI on research. So many things happen in between the study that I do and a product going to market. So many other variables we don't measure occur. How can I be held to account to measure ROI? Well, one of the reasons that we believe it's not only doable, but it's actually important, came through in a study that we at Canberra, along with Boston Consulting Group, have just completed on the management of insights inside major corporations. And some of you may remember that BCG actually did a study of this sort in 2009, and they segmented corporate research functions into 4 levels. Stage 1, where research departments are essentially reactive or just emerging. Stage 2, where maybe they are business contributors. Stage 3, where they actually are strategic partners. And stage 4, where they are so strategically important in the business that they're laying the table, they're setting the table, not just at the table. So we wanted to know, with this space of 7 years in between the 2 studies, what has happened. How many research departments, research functions, have actually managed to climb to either stages 3 or 4 from 2009? Well, the good news is that the number of research functions that are actually at stages 3 and 4 today are double those that were in 2009. The bad news is that they constitute only 20% of all corporate research functions. That is only 20%, only 1 in 5 corporate research functions are delivering the strategic value to their clients that makes a difference to business outcomes. And that's really quite a horrific result. One of the things we did find, we really delved into what makes for a strategic research or consumer insights function. And one of the things we found was that really
the other presentations in a different slide. Yeah.
It's
a different slides, the one from IIeX.
If
you got the slides,
if the executive team is not championing consumer insights, customer centricity within the organization, then the research function is never going to get beyond being just a contributing part of the organization. They're never going to get to that strategic level. So the first step is really to be able to prove your worth to the C-suite, to the executive team, such that they're willing to stand up and actually champion you. Not just say that it's a jolly good thing to have in the organization, but that you are a pillar of the organization, that they are willing to put money behind you because they really believe in you.
Do you have a USB
The other
stick
thing
on
you
find
is that the more advanced the consumer insights function is within a corporation, the more likely it is that they are measuring return on investment in research, and that they're more satisfied with their own jobs, and that their clients are happy with what they do. This is really interesting. It's very, very high correlation. If you're measuring ROI, it's likely that you are a strategic partner. If you're a strategic partner, it is very likely that you're measuring ROI. So when Andrew says that it's necessary to be able to measure this for us to be able to improve the impact we have within organizations, this is the data that says that that is absolutely true. We have to be accountable. We have to understand what accountability means, and we have to be able to demonstrate it day in, day out, and market it internally within these organizations day in, day out. And that is a prerequisite then for becoming a strategic partner. So I'm going to hand over to Alex, because Brendan's has been doing some similar work, and I think you'll kind of some similar ideas.
Alex, you're going to have to go without slides for a moment, if that's okay.
That's fine. So at Brainjuicer, we partnered with the World Federation of Advertisers to survey 300 plus corporate executives, so client-side executives, across 94 different companies. So large study. And really 2 findings popped out. The first is that when you cut that data between client-side marketers and client-side insights departments, client-side marketers feel much less positive towards insights than insights departments feel about themselves, right? So the old adage, to see ourselves as others see us, is really important. And why does it matter? right? We act with our feelings. So if our key stakeholder, it's not our only stakeholder, but it's really our key stakeholder, that's marketing, do not perceive the insights function to add value, we really do have a branding problem for our function, right? And I've always believed that for an industry that actually, gives advice to clients on how to better brand their products and solutions and communications, we do a really, really terrible job at branding ourselves as an industry. The second finding that actually popped out, and maybe it'll come up on the slides, maybe it won't, but is that our marketers, so our key stakeholder, is much, much more likely to regard their insights function as a librarian than we are to regard ourselves, right? Only 4% of client-side insights people regard themselves as a librarian, yet I think it's about more than a quarter of client-side marketers regard the insights function as purely a librarian. That's really, really, really bad news, shocking news actually for our function. Now the good news is that while a much, much smaller proportion of marketers actually see us as strategic consultants, the way we see ourselves, the hope is that we would be that. Marketers want us to be strategic consultants, and that's really what the 100-day challenge is about, doing something to actually elevate our status and elevate perceptions of us, and perception is reality, elevate feelings of us around being strategic consultants. And that's really what our study with the WFA highlighted. I'm not sure where our moderator is.
But we could talk maybe a bit more. Andrew, if he's not coming forward. Simon, you talked about, I see we got to step up and lead, right? You were talking about ROI. How do companies go about measuring things like ROI?
Well, I think one of the, thanks. I think one of the stumbling blocks maybe in this conversation in the past has been the idea that measurement of ROI has to be necessarily quantitative and revolving around revenue or profitability. It certainly can be, and where it can be, it should be. But I think many that we've come across, and I think Kathy, you'd probably say this as well, that are measuring ROI are doing so in different terms. Did what we do save time? Did what we do save cost? Did what we do kind of take a process and simplify it? Did it result in increased sales? Did it result in increased decision-making or ability to make decisions? I think you have to find where it had an impact, and both quantitatively if you can, but also qualitatively be able to articulate that benefit and then put that into something that can be seen as a measurement, whether qualitative or quantitative. Kathy?
Totally agree. And I think the thing I would add to that is that for most of the clients we deal with, they first say, gee, I don't think you can measure ROI. There's no. And I think clearly I strongly disagree with that. But I think that as researchers and insight folks, we want to have a formulaic. We want to put it in an algorithm. We think that it's got to be, just very, very specific. It doesn't have to be. And so a lot of times I'm always guiding and consulting and saying, think small. Don't get overwhelmed by it. Think small and think about everything you do. What is this return? And before you know it, you have accumulated lots of information, whether it's on a project basis or whatever. And the other piece to that is, I would add, is having a dashboard that really tracks this. And really, you'd be surprised as you start this how much impact you really have, and you're able to start small and build. So that would be the only add-on. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we just had a bit of technical trouble. Sorry about that, Alex. You raised a very important point about the strategic consultancy role. What do you think, if you look at it from an agency perspective, how can agencies help clients become more strategic consultants to their businesses?
Yeah, I think for me it's just focusing on our association with creating commercial advantage, right? If you look at a sort of parallel industry, which would be the creative industry, you immediately talk about really effective advertising campaigns, and this agency, be it DDB, BBDO, Gray, whoever it might be, created and is responsible for that campaign and is immediately associated with the commercial advantage that it gave the client. And I'd really challenge folks in the audience to think about that from a research perspective. How many research companies could you actually list and say, you know what, they're famous for driving a particular commercial advantage, and it's shockingly limited. And I think as a function, as an industry, you know, research agencies have done a really bad job at associating ourselves with commercial advantage.
Kathy?
I think what I'd like to add is from the client side perspective. And one of the things that, has evolved as the organizations tried to be more strategic in their focus is that the importance of what I'll call just a strategic plan for the insight folks. I'm not talking about the marketing strategic plan or the general company strategic plan. I'm talking about insights. And I'm not talking about a 50, 100-page PowerPoint document, but I'm talking about something simple that really looks at what is the plan for the next 3 to 5 year horizon. What information do you have? What are the gaps? Where's the areas that you're missing? Where is the area that you're going to help drive innovation for the future growth of that business? And we found in the study that we talked about with Simon is that only about a third, so 1 out of 3 companies actually have a strategic plan for the function. And then you say, well, gee, what about they have a budget? Well, only 43% of companies actually have a budget that they think about or an operating plan that they work within. And we know from the data, and we've got proof for the first time that says when you have these things, you have a much higher satisfied stakeholder group and that you have much better satisfaction with the insight results. And so this kind of plan is really helpful to form the framework. It also, by doing something like this, it also provides you an opportunity to move past the project-based mentality and more to a business value-based. And that's important. Simon just talked about the importance of partnering or having someone in the C-suite who is the champion. In my experience, this kind of strategic framework for the inside organization is a great opportunity to have exposure to the C-suite. So whether it's a CEO, CMO, whatever, they're interested in what's really happening. And this is a great opportunity to have an entry into that discussion.
Lisa, if you think about it, you have a large team of researchers or customer insight specialists. And what challenges have you faced in converting those people into strategic consultants or partners for the business?
Well, I think about this. If I walk down the hallway here, I have a lot of people walk up to me and say, I want to be your strategic partner. What the heck does that mean? And likewise, if I walk into a business leader's office and I say, hi, I'm Lisa. I'm not your market researcher. I'm your strategic partner. They look at me like, yeah, right. Okay, and when's this meeting going to be over? It's not what you say you are. It's what you do and how you participate. So lots of us have seats at the table or invite ourselves into meetings. Use it. So show that you're a strategic partner by connecting dots for people. I find a lot of researchers think what I'll call inside the study. So inside the box, inside the study, they're in a business meeting, they'll talk about the study results. If they're asked a question, they'll say, well, we need to do a study on that, or I'll have to go look at that, or I don't have 102 data points. I can't make a decision about this yet. We're insights professionals. Have an opinion. We know a lot of things, and connect the dots for that business owner. You become a strategic partner, and you own that by saying, yes, I know this study says X, but if we look at this trend that's happening in the marketplace, and we look at our tracking data, and we look at what our competitors are doing, based on this, here's the likely implications. Here's where you can go. And it's giving the researchers, some of them, you need to pull it out of them. It's not a natural place for them to go. They've grown up, I grew up in a customer service mentality. I'm here to serve, servant leadership. It's not a bad model, but it doesn't mean that I can't have an opinion or that I can't voice that. And it's really encouraging them. And I know my team gets really, really frustrated with me because I'll come back and say, oh, all this activity you did was fabulous. What did it mean? Right. What decision did the business make? What decision did you suggest the business make? And if they say, well, they're going to do this, and I'm like, well, and what impact does that have? So it's, I get it, I know I get a little annoying, but it's really a practice and a habit of thinking about what was the impact of that investment, not how cool was the study, not how long did it take, not how much did it cost, but what impact did it have?
And Alex, if you look at that from an agency's perspective and in terms of what you see as how value can be added and how that relationship with the client impacts your ability to add value to the client, what do you see sort of as the main triggers or barriers to that win-win relationship?
Yeah, I think there's a tactical and a substantive, right? On the tactical, it's similar on our side as what Lisa just articulated. We're too focused on immediate revenue, on an immediate project, on an immediate need. And I feel we do a pretty inconsistent job, really, of actually forcing clients and challenging clients to explain to us the wider business challenge and answer that they're going to give. And also, following through on that and really making a recommendation based around it and understanding, how we contributed. In order to build fame for driving business, we actually have to understand and ask how we did it. And I don't think agencies generally are following up with clients and finding those case studies on a tactical level to build it. I think more substantively, I do think it builds to a brand strategy for the industry and for each agency within it. And if each agency can't more closely align itself from a branding standpoint with actually driving business advantage and business growth for their clients, then they really shouldn't be sat at the table, let alone setting it.
Simon, would you like to add to that? Is what you see, obviously, from consulting a lot of agencies on their relationship with clients?
I think you can come across agencies that have really, really tight binding relationships with clients and have had so over many years, and usually they're the ones who are not afraid to take various different sets of data, various data points, experience, anecdote, different ways of displaying data or distributing or marketing it alongside their clients. Those are the ones that build the big accounts. Those are the ones that are constantly thinking about impact. I think where we come across the real problem is in agencies that have a project mentality. And I think, Lisa, you and I have talked about how, agencies will come to you and say, give me all your business and I'll save you a lot of money. And it's, without even a thought about, well, what are the issues confronting Merck? What are the trends in pharmaceuticals today? What are the issues that we have in terms of dealing with all the stakeholders? No, it's just give me all your money and I'll save you a bundle. That's not a relationship. So I think agencies, really good agencies, do build those relationships, and they build them on the basis of knowledge and of data marketing.
Thank you. I think I'll just give you an insight into how many people have actually taken the challenge so far. A few less than are in the room, so we have 8 people who have actually put their name onto the paper and agreed to sign up. So you've still got time, and hopefully you're getting some inspiration from the panel to actually add your name to that list of people who actually want to make a difference to the industry, impacting the ROI that we can deliver. So I'll give you some time still to do that before we lock the doors. In the meantime, I think I want to move on to the thorny issue of measuring ROI. Because, I know everybody says, yeah, it's great in theory. I know there are obviously huge challenges to doing it in practice. And Lisa, in this respect, you're pretty much at the coalface in terms of having to measure and demonstrate to the business leaders that your department is actually delivering value. So let's talk specifically about the measurement of ROI and your thoughts on that.
Well, I think ROI is one of those words that immediately get people's defenses up. And I grew up in an industry where we talked about number of dollars per researcher, number of studies per researcher, and I was very proud of some of those metrics at one point in time, but I try to really steer away from pounds of research per person because it's not an accurate measure, particularly if you're really savvy and you're using available data to answer a business question. So in the old models, that would count against you. And ROI is great. There are a couple places, and I think Alex mentioned one earlier, copy testing, digital investment. It's real easy to calculate an ROI. So what you can do, get in the habit. But think about business impact as something bigger than just ROI. And if you're a business person, you're constantly looking at the top line and the bottom line. So there are things that you can measure that impact the top line. So ROI from your investment. There's also identifying new market opportunities, getting to market faster, identifying new indications for your drug that make it more attractive. But there's a lot of bottom line stuff too that really matters. And I think of that in terms of resources, time, people, money. So if you could move to a new methodology and it's faster, well, speed of business today is a lot faster than it used to be, and there were a lot of conversations in the plenary yesterday around that. And, that old adage, and I remember this, 20-some years ago, well, you can pick faster, cheaper, or better, but you can only have two. Let's just throw that away, because I don't think that's true anymore. Shout out to all the companies doing, like, mobile ethnography. Really great example. I love ethnography. I love anthropology, but let's face it, it's expensive, it's time-consuming, and at times it's disruptive. So no matter how great an anthropologist you are, if you're in a room with somebody who has, if you're in the room with me at night, I'm going to have insomnia, whether I had insomnia or not, because there's somebody sitting in my room with me, which is just creepy. But if you think about, like, mobile, so, and doing things like mobile ethnography, you're in the moment with the person when they're having symptoms. You got a 2-year-old, you're up at 2 in the morning, and you're probably talking to Siri or watching videos or whatever it is that you're suffering from. If anybody has chronic pain, you're up in the middle of the night. That's the time you want to connect with the patient. And they'll tell their phones anything. So it is faster, it's cheaper, and it's better. And what you have to do as an insights professional is actually frame that for your business clients, whether it's a client company or a client marketing team. Here's what we did for you. We saved you time, we saved you money. It's a MasterCard ad, I love that. What a great concept. And there's something priceless about the business impact of knowing what it is to be in the moment with that patient when they're not trying to remember how they felt. They're feeling it right then and there.
That's a great point. I think we too often focus on the top line and the business impact and not enough on the bottom line, whereas most companies, in fact, are actually making more money by affecting the bottom line than they are by actually growing their business. But our whole business model is about finding new customers, finding new growth opportunities, whereas a lot of the time it's, hey, how can we save money?
And it's practice, okay? So the first time it's really, really hard, and the second time it's still really hard, and the third time you've got something that doesn't fit any of your parameters. Look at everything you do and say, what was the outcome of this? What did I save? What did I contribute? And the more you do it, the easier it is.
Practice, yeah.
It becomes how you think and how you talk about what you do, and that's just magic.
That's fantastic. Simon,
I think just to add to that, don't underestimate the power of anecdote. You think of some of the things that research has actually contributed to. Think of Dove soap or the whole Dove brand. How many millions and millions and millions of dollars that made for Unilever. And that came through really good research. I actually even think that, in social research, you can point to impact. The winner of the best paper at last year's SMR Congress was 5 agencies who got together to work out how to stop the spread of AIDS in 7 sub-Saharan African countries. the result of that study was a reduction of 60% in new cases. You know, let's not forget the power of anecdote, and I think let's actually, as an industry, try and put some of this stuff together to actually promote the value of what we do.
Yeah, I think it works on a company level as well as on a whole industry level. I know Jeff is coming up to wanting to open the floor.
2 minutes. You have 2 minutes.
Well, we're going to open for questions from the floor, really, at this point. We know Michael will have a question, so fire away. Do you need a microphone at the front, please? Yeah, please. Do you have a microphone? Michael.
There is a line, whether it's fine or not, I'm not sure, between a survey research consultant and a management consultant. And it seems to me, as I was listening to you all, that it wasn't sure whether or not you've sort of blurred the line or gone over the line. And to Lisa's point, when she said that we have to think inside the question, and most marketing research projects are basically specific to a research goal. So I'm just throwing it out to you all to comment on the line between research consultants and management consulting, because it's sort of like blurred.
Well, I think Kathy, Kathy can.
I love that question, since I've spent 30 years on the client side and now the last 8 in the management consulting side. I think the ideal, the way I look at it, is that the gold standard for the insights folks at the client side should be like management consultants. They need to have the tools in their toolkit and know how they're used, when they're used, and have done them and have that experience. However, they need to think more broadly. And we're talked here a lot about the fact that, showing impact to the business. And that's the real value that we bring. And our stakeholders want us to do that. And so we need to think more broadly as management consultants in the insight space.
Yeah, behind every research question is a business question. And it's our fault if we don't ask about that and understand what it is. And I think those business questions are going to get solved. I go back to what Keith Weed spoke about. He's the Chief Marketing Officer for Unilever. They're going to solve these big business questions, and it's up to our industry, so all of you in the audience, if you want to be a part of answering that question or not. That's our decision to make.
Great. I think we've got time for one more question. Over here.
So I'm a little biased here because my boss is on the panel, and we are constantly challenged to evaluate and measure the ROI of the work we're doing. And as I was listening to you, 2 things came to mind. One's more of a comment, and I'd like your reactions. The first is, I now have a new mantra. Every supplier that I do a project with, they're going to give me a cost to do it, and I'm going to push back at the end and say, now, what's the return on doing this project? Why can't they start thinking about that? But I think that goes back to my second point, which is, as I was listening to you, and recently was challenging myself to do this, so putting an ROI on every project, what really hit home for me is, this is not a hard thing to do, and it goes back to the level of rigor and what you're using that for. So if I'm forecasting my brand, yeah, I want a high level of rigor. But when I'm looking at what I'm doing to drive the business, I might have a little more flexibility there to say, this is how it's impacting. And 90% of the work I'm doing is for a marketing team that's actually going to get measured on how they drive the business. So why am I not looking at what they're doing and saying, this is what I did to drive their business? So I'm just kind of curious, why do we let ourselves off the hook so easily, do you think? Because as insight professionals, this is really our job anyway, is to drive the business.
Alex, you've got 30 seconds.
Yeah, I think we do let ourselves off the hook incredibly easily, I think both on the supply side and the client side. It's all too easy to do what is familiar. So to do what we've done over and over and over again. And the world is changing, right? We're moving to zero-based budgeting. I probably shouldn't say this publicly, but my wife's pension just got taken away. The business world is changing, right? And cost cutting is going to come to research. So at some point we have to change our behavior, and actually earn our seat at the table or start to set the table and start thinking about these things. If we don't, going back to what I said, the business questions are going to get solved, but we're not going to be a part of the answer. Technology, management consulting, whatever it might be, other industries are going to start taking our lunch, basically.
Thank you, Alec. I'd just like to give the good news. We've now reached double figures on the people in this room willing to take the challenge. We add it to 6 on the stage here. We're up to 16 today. It's not a bad morning. Because at the end of the day, it's about individual steps. The industry can do so much, but I think it's the responsibility of everybody in their day-to-day work to think what we can do differently to improve the ROI and the value we deliver to clients. So I encourage you to also take the challenge. I will hunt you down over the next couple of days, so avoid me. You know what I look like now. I will be prompting everybody I meet to be part of this movement to actually create a brighter future for our industry. So I'd like to thank the panel. They've hopefully given you fantastic insights into what you can do in practice, and also hunt them down over the next couple of days and pick their brains. They're a fantastic source of knowledge about what you can do to improve the ROI you deliver. So thank you very much.